There is a secret hidden in plain sight, one so simple. Most people pass their entire lives without ever noticing it. Just behind your ear, at a place no one ever told you to look, lies a key, and if you touch it just once, with presence and intention, your body begins to shift. Muscles release, breath deepens. A sense of safety you may not have felt in years quietly awakens. This is not a metaphor, it is real, and it has been spoken of in the oldest traditions, whispered across centuries as a forgotten portal to healing. Tonight, you'll discover why this gesture, overlooked by modern life, holds the power to reprogram your nervous system, ease tension, restore rest, and awaken what lies dormant within you. But know this, the true secret is not only in the touch itself, it's in the way you do it, the awareness you bring. Stay with me until the end, or you'll miss the part that changes everything. What begins as a small motion may open the door to an entirely new way of living. Most people go through life without ever noticing it. Just behind the soft curve of your ear, resting on the ridge of the mastoid bone, there is a place that looks unremarkable, but holds something extraordinary. At first glance, it's nothing more than skin meeting bone. But if you take 2 fingers and gently rest them there, you'll discover what ancient healers once guarded as a living secret, a doorway into your body's natural state of renewal. The first time you touch it, you may feel nothing more than the warmth of your hand. But stay there for a moment, and something subtle begins to shift. Your breath slows, your shoulders ease, and your mind feels as if it's stepping down from a constant state of alert. It isn't magic, it isn't suggestion, it's your nervous system, remembering how to turn off the alarms it has been holding onto for too long. For centuries, this point remained hidden, not because it was forbidden, but because it was too quiet to survive in a world that celebrates noise. Modern medicine looked for complicated solutions, elaborate treatments, and mechanical explanations. A gesture this soft, this ordinary, seemed too simple to matter. And yet, it is exactly in its simplicity that its strength lies. Think of it as a keyhole, small, almost invisible, but when the right key turns, it opens into a space much larger than itself. The lightest touch behind your ear sends ripples through the vagus nerve, the body's silent messenger that decides whether you remain in fight or flight or return to calm. By pressing there, you are not forcing your body to heal. You are reminding it that it already knows how. Try it now. If you wish, place 2 fingers behind your ear, breathe slowly, and allow yourself to notice. The shift may be subtle at first, a quiet pause between thoughts, a sense of being held from within. But if you linger, the change becomes undeniable. What once felt like a hidden corner of your body turns out to be the entrance to a sanctuary you've been carrying all along. This is the beauty of it. No tools, no training, no complex rituals, just your hand, your breath, and a willingness to listen. And in that silence, the body whispers back, you are safe, you can rest. For much of our modern history, we've been taught to see the body as a kind of machine, an intricate system of parts, gears, and circuits that eventually wear down and need repair. Bones are treated like levers, muscles like pulleys, and organs like replaceable components. The language of medicine has become the language of mechanics: fix, patch, adjust, replace. And in many ways, that view has saved lives. But it has also blinded us to something older, something far more profound. Long before the rise of laboratories and charts, ancient traditions saw the body differently. To them, it was never just a machine. It was a temple, a sacred vessel, a bridge between what is visible and what cannot be seen. Each breath was not simply oxygen moving through lungs. It was a prayer, a rhythm connecting human life to the larger pulse of creation. Every heartbeat was not just blood in motion. It was a drumbeat, echoing the harmony of the universe. The monks of the East understood this truth and devoted years not to escaping the body, but to inhabiting it fully, listening to each sensation as if it carried a hidden scripture. In the forests, shamans touched the skin with reverence, awakening visions and releasing memories through subtle pressure. Yogi masters of India mapped the body as rivers of energy, learning to shift frequency with a single breath, a single finger, or a single thought. What modern science dismissed as superstition, they held as wisdom, passed from teacher to student, generation to generation. When you begin to see your body in this way, the shift is dramatic. You are no longer trapped in the belief that healing can only come from the outside, from pills, procedures, or endless fixes. Instead, you start to realize that your body is alive with signals, frequencies, and flows, waiting to be remembered. Each point of skin, Each gentle pulse beneath it carries, meaning the body is not silent, it has always been speaking. We simply forgot how to listen. And this is where the doorway opens. When you choose to view the body not as a machine, but as a temple, every touch becomes more than contact. It becomes a form of prayer. A simple gesture, a conscious breath, can unlock forces as real as any medicine. Healing begins not by controlling the body, but by honoring it, listening to it, trusting that it knows the way back to balance. This is not about abandoning science, but about expanding our vision. Machines break down. Temples endure when they are treated with reverence. When you enter into that mindset, when you approach your own body as sacred ground, you prepare yourself for something the modern world rarely offers, the chance to step back into alignment with the mystery of life itself. Among the fragments of wisdom attributed to the Egyptian sage, Thoth, there is a phrase that has puzzled and inspired seekers for centuries. He called it the art of silent invocation. No chants, no incense, no dramatic displays, only presence, intention, and a gesture so quiet it could pass unnoticed. Yet within that silence was a doorway, a ritual that could bridge the physical body and the realm of the unseen. Imagine it, a priest, standing in the dim light of a temple chamber, his hand resting gently behind the ear. No words spoken, no audience to impress. The silence itself became the prayer. The touch was not a command, but an invitation, a signal to the body and the spirit that it was time to return to harmony. In this stillness, a resonance awakened, as if a forgotten language was being spoken directly through the skin. Thoth understood what modern seekers often overlook, that vibration is not created only by sound. It can rise from intention, from presence, from the delicate union of breath and touch. The gesture mattered, yes, but it was the energy behind the gesture that opened the portal. To press without awareness is nothing more than pressure. To touch with reverence is to speak a word the soul has been waiting to hear. This is why so many traditions, separated by oceans and centuries, arrived at similar practices. Eastern monks sat in meditation, breathing slowly, until silence vibrated louder than words. Shamans of the Americas placed hands upon the body in moments of transition, knowing the spirit listens more deeply in quiet than in speech. Yogis mastered the subtle control of energy, shifting entire states of consciousness with a finger poised in stillness. Across cultures, the message was the same. Silence is not emptiness. It is the frequency of creation. And so, the silent invocation is more than a technique. It is a way of entering into relationship with your body, with your soul, with the invisible currents that flow through all things. The ancients knew that true power is rarely loud. The greatest invocations do not need to be shouted into the heavens. They are whispered inwardly, spoken in the language of vibration, felt rather than heard. When you place your fingers gently behind your ear, you are not just touching flesh. You are reviving a forgotten ritual, one that Thoth and countless initiates once practiced to align themselves with the balance of the universe. The question is not how firmly you press, but how fully you are present. For in the end, the invocation does not happen in the body alone. It happens in the space between silence and intention. Think back to the last time you felt truly overwhelmed, maybe during an anxious conversation, a sudden wave of fear, or one of those nights when exhaustion wrapped around you so tightly you didn't know what else to do. Without thinking, your hand may have drifted up to the side of your head, fingers pressing just behind the ear, resting there, as if the body itself was searching for shelter. It wasn't a conscious decision, it was instinct, an unspoken language passed down through countless generations of human experience. This is what many traditions call cellular memory. The body remembers patterns long after the mind has forgotten them. Just as a child instinctively reaches for a mother's embrace, your nervous system knows where to guide your hand when it longs for safety. That subtle act of touching behind the ear isn't random. It's the body's way of trying to bring you back to center, to remind you that there is a refuge built into your very design. We often assume healing has to come from something external, medicine, therapy, intervention. And yes, those have their place, but there's also a wisdom woven into your cells, a memory so deep, it doesn't need words or instructions. It acts quietly, urging you to place your hand where the doorway exists. Every time you've unconsciously touched that spot in a moment of fear or weariness, you are answering the body's ancient call. And here is the wonder. What seems like a small gesture carries vast meaning. 2 fingers resting behind the ear can open a kind of inner space, a pause where the noise of the world falls away, and you feel, if only for a breath, that you are safe. It doesn't happen because you force it. It happens because your body recognizes the signal. It is like hearing a familiar melody, one that tells every cell, you can rest now. The more you notice this, the more empowering it becomes. You start to realize that you don't have to wait until life overwhelms you to access this inner refuge. The memory is already there, waiting to be awakened with awareness. By practicing this touch intentionally, you transform what was once an unconscious reflex into a conscious path of healing. And this is where the story connects directly to you. Because if you've ever found your hand drifting to that spot without knowing why, you're not alone. We all share this memory. It's part of what makes us human, the longing for balance, the instinct to seek safety, the body's quiet intelligence guiding us home. The gesture is not a coincidence. It is your biology and your spirit working together, showing you the way back when you feel lost. In that recognition, something shifts. You stop doubting whether you're capable of healing and begin to see that the blueprint has been inside you all along. The body doesn't need to be convinced. It only needs to be reminded, and the reminder is already in your hands. Beneath the surface of your skin, running like an invisible river through your body, is a nerve so powerful. It has been called the master switch of your health. It begins deep in the brain and weaves its way down through the heart, the lungs, the stomach, and even the intestines. It touches nearly every vital system along the way. This is the vagus nerve, and though you may have never thought much about it, this single strand of living electricity decides moment after moment whether your body is at war or at peace. Doctors describe it as part of the parasympathetic nervous system, the system that calms you down after stress. But the truth is simpler. The vagus nerve is the voice that whispers to your body, fight or rest. It tells your heartbeat to slow when danger passes. It signals your stomach to digest when food is safe to process. It guides your breath back into rhythm after you've been holding it without even noticing. Without this nerve, the body would never know how to leave survival mode. And here is where the hidden point behind your ear becomes so remarkable. That spot, resting on the mastoid bone, lies directly along pathways that connect to the vagus nerve. When you touch it gently, you are not just soothing the skin, you are sending a signal into the very wiring of your nervous system. It is as if your fingers are flipping a switch, telling your body, you can stand down now. The threat has passed. Think about how many of us live stuck in that fight position. We lie awake at night, unable to sleep, because the body believes it's still under attack. Anxiety loops through the mind, because the nervous system never receives the command to relax. Digestion falters, the stomach tightens, the heart races, because the system is locked in defense. Over time, this constant alert becomes a prison. You don't even notice it anymore. You just call it stress, but the body was never designed to live like that, and it doesn't have to. Science has shown that stimulating the vagus nerve, whether through breathing, humming, or touch, can restore balance. Researchers have found that even subtle stimulation lowers blood pressure, eases inflammation, and improves sleep. What ancient traditions described as energy flow, modern medicine now confirms with data. So when you place 2 fingers behind your ear with presence, you're not just indulging in some mystical ritual, you are activating one of the most important biological circuits in your body. That gentle pressure is a reminder, a biological permission slip that tells the vagus nerve to lead you back into calm. And from there, everything else begins to follow. The heart steadies, the stomach softens, the breath deepens. It doesn't take force. It doesn't take complicated training. It takes awareness, the kind of awareness that Thoth once called silent invocation, and that scientists now describe as parasympathetic activation, 2 languages describing the same truth. You don't need to wait for crisis to use it. The moment you feel tension rising, the moment your thoughts begin to race, pause, touch the point, breathe. Let the signal ripple through the nerve that connects your entire inner landscape. What may begin as a simple gesture becomes a profound reset. This is not blind belief. It is your body's own design. The vagus nerve has been waiting thousands of times a day to know whether to fight or to heal. And with the lightest touch, you can choose the answer. The Egyptians had a word for balance, a word that carried not just the idea of stillness, but of harmony in motion. They called it Mahat. To them, Mahat was not a static condition. It was the living rhythm between opposites, tension and release, action and surrender, vigilance and rest. And at the heart of this teaching was a belief that certain places in the body held the power to activate this balance, like seals waiting to be touched. One of those seals, they said, rested just behind the ear. They referred to it as the seal of rest, not because it stopped life from moving, but because it brought life back into alignment. When touched with presence, this point did not force the body into healing. It reminded the body of its original design. The nervous system, so used to defending, suddenly heard another message. You can let go now. The energy that once went into holding tension could be redirected into repair. Think of it as an internal code, written into the body long before words. Every time this seal is activated, the code runs again. Stress interrupts, life fragments, but the code waits patiently, unbroken, ready to restore order the moment you remember how to access it. And the remarkable truth is this: it doesn't require elaborate rituals or years of training. It only requires awareness, the willingness to touch with intention, and the humility to trust the body's wisdom. The Egyptians believed that initiates in their mystery schools could not step into deeper states of spiritual practice until they had learned to activate this seal. To them, no progress could be made while the body was still locked in battle with itself. Only when Mahat was restored, when the inner field shifted from survival to balance, could the soul descend fully into its temple. Modern science might call this homeostasis. Healers today might speak of nervous system regulation, but the essence is the same. The seal of rest is a threshold, and the body knows what to do once it has permission to cross it. Picture it this way: your body is like an instrument. When one string is out of tune, the whole song feels wrong. By touching this point, you are not forcing the instrument to play a new melody. You are simply turning the peg, tightening or loosening the string until the original harmony returns. Suddenly, the music flows again. That is the promise of Mahat, not perfection, not the absence of struggle, but the living balance that lets you move between effort and ease, protection and trust. Behind your ear lies the seal that carries this code, and when you choose to awaken it, you are choosing to step back into the harmony that has been waiting for you all along. The ancients gave many names to sacred places in the body, but few are as evocative as what they called the ear of the soul. They believed that just behind the ear was not simply a piece of bone or skin, but a listening gate, a place where the soul itself leans close, waiting for the moment when the body finally says, "It's safe to return." In the mystery schools of Egypt and other ancient traditions, initiates were guided through rituals of silence before they could advance further. At a certain stage, the teacher would rest a hand lightly behind the ear of the student, not to control, but to signal. It marked the crossing from one state of being to another, from the restless mind, locked in reaction, to the open body, ready to receive. That small gesture was more than a touch. It was a key, unlocking the moment when the initiate could step beyond survival and into presence. To understand this is to see the human body differently. You are not simply a creature reacting to stress, trapped in cycles of fight or flight. You carry within you a built-in threshold. When touched with awareness, the body interprets it as permission to shift. Muscles souffle, breath lengthens. The nervous system, which has been looping like an old record, suddenly lifts the needle and begins to play a new song. This is why the ear of the soul became such a powerful symbol. It was never about the anatomy alone. It was about what happens when safety is restored. Because when the body feels safe, the soul opens its doors. Creativity returns. Joy trickles back in. Even memories long buried can rise to the surface, not to haunt, but to be released. In that safety, the old codes of your being, what some traditions described as vibrational memory, begin to stir. Modern language might call this neuroplasticity, the reprogramming of the nervous system, but the ancients didn't need that terminology. They knew from experience that a gesture repeated with reverence rewrites the body's story. Every touch, every conscious breath was like updating the software of the soul. And with each repetition, the old programs of fear and defense gave way to a new operating system, one built on trust, balance, and presence. When you place your fingers there today, you are doing more than imitating an old ritual. You are stepping into the same current of wisdom that has guided humans for millennia. You are speaking directly to the ear of your soul, telling it through vibration and silence. It's all right, you can come home now. And in that moment, the body listens, the soul listens, and the great reprogramming begins not through force or intellect, but through the quiet recognition that healing has always been your birthright. There is a time of night when the world begins to dissolve. The mind loosens its grip, the body softens its guard, and something subtle stirs between wakefulness and sleep. The ancients called this threshold the liquid hour, the most fertile moment of the day, when the barriers of thought melt and the unseen world comes closer. It is in this hour that the simple touch behind the ear becomes more than practice. It becomes a passage. For most of us, bedtime is restless. We lie down carrying the noise of the day, our minds still racing, our bodies still braced for battles that never end. Sleep becomes shallow, interrupted, more escape than renewal. But the liquid hour was never meant to be rushed through. It was meant to be entered like a sanctuary, with reverence, and the way in was deceptively simple. Touch, breath, and silence. Egyptian initiates prepared themselves with this very ritual. They called it the sign of the Ka's release, a gesture that allowed the soul to journey freely in the night without being weighed down by fear, guilt, or the clamor of daily life. By placing fingers gently behind the ear and breathing slowly, they signaled both body and spirit that the day was over, the guard could be lowered, and the inner gates could open. What followed was not just rest, but exploration. Dreams were not seen as illusions, but as sacred journeys, a classroom where wisdom could be revealed. When you try this in your own life, you may notice something subtle at first. As you prepare for sleep, let your hand rest at that hidden point, and let your breathing lengthen until each inhale feels like an invitation, and each exhale feels like surrender. Within minutes, the nervous system receives the message. You are safe. It is time. The chatter softens, the body's rhythm slows, and the descent into sleep becomes a gentle fall instead of a fight. And yet, the ritual is more than a cure for insomnia. Practiced with awareness, it opens the possibility of stepping into the dream world with clarity. Many traditions believe that what we call dreams are not random stories, but encounters with the subtle field, moments when the soul converses with symbols and mysteries it cannot meet in daylight. The liquid hour is the crossing into that world. Imagine falling asleep, not with the residue of the day clinging to you, but with the sense that you are stepping into a temple. The body lies down, the mind releases, and the soul is free to wander where it needs to go. You awaken not only refreshed, but subtly changed, as if a piece of wisdom followed you back across the threshold. This nightly practice does not demand perfection. It asks only for presence, 2 fingers behind the ear, a breath drawn with intention, silence honored in its fullness. And with each repetition, the body learns, the nervous system remembers, and sleep becomes what it was always meant to be. A doorway to healing, a return to balance, and a bridge into the deeper mysteries of the soul. At first, the gesture feels deliberate. You place your fingers behind your ear, take a breath, and wait for the shift. It requires intention, choosing to pause, choosing to listen. But something remarkable happens. When this simple act is repeated night after night, the body begins to learn. The nervous system, once cautious, starts to anticipate safety the moment your hand approaches. The practice no longer feels like a technique. It becomes a language. Every ritual works this way. In the beginning, it feels external, but over time, the line between action and being blurs. What once required focus becomes second nature, woven into the rhythms of daily life. So it is with this touch. The repetition engraves a memory deep into your cells until your body remembers the sensation, even without the gesture. The relaxation arrives first. The touch follows after, as if your very biology is one step ahead of you. This is the point where touch transforms into frequency. You are no longer signaling the body to calm. It already knows. You are no longer coaxing the nervous system to reorganize it. Reorganizes itself. The vibration becomes continuous, not as an effort, but as a presence, a hum, beneath your awareness. It is the body tuning itself, note by note, into harmony with something greater. Science calls this neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain and nervous system to rewire. Ancient mystics called it awakening the forgotten codes, 2 different vocabularies describing the same reality. The body is not fixed. It is programmable, reprogrammable, alive with the ability to change. And each cell, when reminded often enough, begins to tune in to the new frequency. Imagine billions of cells, each one carrying its own faint vibration. With practice, those vibrations align. The body becomes like an orchestra, shifting from dissonance into resonance. The music you hear is silence, but the harmony is unmistakable. You feel lighter, sleep deepens, the constant tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach begins to fade. Not because you forced it away, but because the forgotten code of balance has been restored. This is the turning point. Healing stops being an event you chase and becomes the condition you live in. The old patterns of stress still arise, but but they do not dominate. The nervous system has a new home to return to a frequency of safety it now trusts. Even in moments of difficulty, that hum remains in the background, a reminder that the body knows how to come back to itself. What began as a small, conscious action has now become a living current. You carry it wherever you go. It steadies you in chaos, softens you in grief, strengthens you in fatigue. The touch was never the power, it was the doorway, and once you've stepped through, the vibration continues on its own. This is what the ancients meant by awakening forgotten codes. They are not written in books or whispered by teachers. They are embedded in your very cells, waiting for the right frequency to stir them awake. When the touch becomes frequency, you are no longer practicing healing, you are living it. There comes a moment in every true journey of healing when effort fades. The body no longer waits for instruction. The nervous system no longer resists. What once felt like a fragile practice becomes the ground you stand on. The vibration of safety, of restoration, hums so constantly beneath your awareness that it feels as natural as breathing. And in that space, something profound happens. The struggle ends. This is not the absence of life's challenges. It is not perfection, nor a promise that pain will never return. It is something deeper, a full-bodied stillness that holds steady even in the midst of storms. The ancients had a name for this state. They called it the spirit resting on its throne. To them, it was the culmination of practice, the moment when the soul was no longer driven away by fear or locked outside by tension. Instead, it returned to its rightful seat, resting in the temple of the body with quiet dignity. Picture it, the body is no longer a battlefield, every muscle braced, every nerve ready to fight. Instead, it is a sanctuary. The breath moves like incense rising in sacred halls. The heartbeat keeps time like a steady drum in a vast chamber. The mind, once loud with commands and doubts, falls silent, and in that silence, the spirit sits present, grounded, watching, and at peace. When you touch the point behind your ear and continue long enough for the practice to become frequency, you are not simply calming yourself, you are opening a throne room. You are inviting the soul to take its place, and once it does, life itself changes. Decisions are no longer ruled by fear. The past no longer dictates the present. The body is not an obstacle, but a partner, a vessel of clarity. You walk through the world differently, carrying within you a quiet strength that others can feel. And here lies the great paradox. What began as a whisper of a gesture, 2 fingers resting on bone, leads to a transformation vast enough to reshape your life. This was always the wisdom of the mystery schools. Healing was never about escape. It was about embodiment, about becoming so fully present in your own temple that the soul could finally rest where it belongs. Yet this moment is not an ending, it is a beginning. To live with the spirit on its throne is to step into a new cycle, one where your daily life itself becomes the ritual. Each word you speak, each breath you take, each choice you make, flows from that inner harmony. You become, in every sense, a living temple. And as with all true journeys, you are not meant to walk alone. Across the ages, healing was always sustained by community, by the shared field of those who practice together. That is why, here and now, you are invited to anchor this experience, not only for yourself, but for others. Write the phrase, "I touched the point, and my healing began." Share it, speak it, declare it not as superstition, but as an act of resonance. Every voice adds to the frequency. Every repetition strengthens the field. Together, we weave a chorus of healing that stretches far beyond one body, one life, or one moment. So let this be your beginning. Let your body remain a temple. Let your spirit sit upon its throne. And let your life, from this day forward, carry the vibration of remembrance, of restoration, of homecoming. For the secret has always been here, waiting behind the ear, waiting in the silence, waiting in you. What began as a simple touch has revealed itself to be more than a practice. It is a passage, one that connects us not only to our own bodies but to each other. Healing, in its truest form, is never solitary. Each time you place your hand behind your ear, you join a lineage of seekers across centuries. And each time you share your experience, you strengthen a field that belongs to all of us. So let this not end with you. Anchor it by writing, "I touched the point, and my healing began." Share it. Let it ripple outward, and allow this ritual to become a chorus that resonates far beyond these words. Because the more voices that join, the stronger the vibration grows. And know this, the journey is only beginning. There are other mysteries, other codes hidden within the body, other whispers from Thoth, waiting to be remembered. Tonight, You opened one door. Ahead lies an entire temple. Step forward with trust, for a new cycle of awakening has already begun.